With the NFL draft recently coming to a conclusion, we're constantly reminded that there's more than one path to the league. Whether it is being a highly talented recruit, going to a blue blood like Derek Stingley Jr. and Nakobe Dean, or whether you decide to take a less conventional path, like joining a program on the rise and help turning that culture around. But there's another path that isn't always talked about, that doesn't get as much attention as the highest level of college football. You see, it's possible to be at a lower level, such as a Division II, Division III, or even FCS, and still make it to the league. You want a couple examples? Just take a look at Cole Strange from University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, as well as Joshua Williams from Division II, Fayetteville State. Like I said, there's more than one way to forge your own path, and it takes us here highlighting the FCS, which was originally established in 1978 as Division AA, to finally highlight this lower level of college football. And thanks to one of the greatest NCAA games ever created, NCAA Football 06, we finally have the opportunity to do just that. And with that, welcome to the FCS Dynasty on NCAA Football 06. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, man. And welcome to the very first episode of this FCS Dynasty in one of the greatest NCAA football games ever created in NCAA Football 2006, man. Yes, sir. Because back in 06, man, they had the real FCS teams. It's not no FCS Midwest, Northwest, Southeast, none of that. They had the real FCS teams. And I'm able to get most of those mugs in this Dynasty, man. So it's going to be a great one. Make sure you go ahead, smash that like button, hit subscribe as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel, by the way. And we'll go ahead and jump right into it. I gotta show you guys the teams that are in each conference, as what I did end up doing. So the interesting thing about, there wasn't enough FCS teams to be, all 119 in all FCS squads. So there is some FBS teams in here as well. They had to get relegated downward, and they were the worst teams back in the mid 2000s. But we'll go ahead and make sure and check out all the FCS teams that are going to be in this series, that are going to be featured. Starting with the Power 5, we are going to start with the new look ACC, starting with a lot of teams that are traditionally schools that are considered FBCUs or HBCUs. We start with the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, Florida A&M, Delaware State, Delaware. So we got that little Delaware rivalry. That'll be a fun one to watch. New Hampshire, North Carolina A&T, Maine, James Madison, which does have a custom coach. South Carolina State, Norfolk State, Howard, and of course the Hampton Pirates, rounding out the group for this new look ACC. Now for the Big Ten Conference, the Big Ten Conference is going to mainly be teams that either are currently a part of the Missouri Valley Conference, or they used to be a part of the Missouri Valley Conference. So 11 teams in total in this Big Ten. Remember, this is before Nebraska joined, so it was at 11 at the time. So we got Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Illinois, Murray State, down in Kentucky, by the way. Jacksonville State, they're actually making the jump to FBS in real life, but they are going to be in this series. Youngstown State, y'all might be familiar with them from another series that I run in this channel. Western Kentucky, and some of the Tennessee schools like Tennessee Martin, Tennessee Tech, Tennessee State, Southeast Missouri State, which has yet another custom coach in this series, and then the Sanford Bulldogs rounding out the group, repping for the Big Ten Conference. As for the Big 12, we have a lot of these SWAC schools that are also mainly HBCUs. We got Alabama State first and foremost, followed by Arkansas Pine Bluff, Mississippi Valley State, and Jackson State, which is, of course, y'all already know, coached by V, one of the best corners to ever do it, Deion Sanders. Western Carolina, which does have a custom coach in this dynasty file. Texas Southern, which is the rival of Grambling State. Speaking of Grambling State, they're up in here as well as Prairie Valley A&M, Chattanooga, Alcorn State, and of course Alabama A&M, rounding out this group, repping for the Big 12 Conference. Meanwhile, for the Big East, we of course have all of the Ivy League schools. All of the Ivy League schools are in this game. We got Brown University, the Yale Bulldogs, the Princeton Tigers, Penn Quakers, Harvard Crimson, the Dartmouth Big Green, the Cornell Big Red. So we got Big Green and Big Red. The Columbia Lions rounding out the group here in the Ivy League. Now for Conference USA, Conference USA does have some FBS schools that did get relegated downward into the FCS, but they will be ranked very highly since we had to import the rest of those schools. We do have Tulane, SMU, which is ranked number 9 in the country, Rice, who is also in the top 10, East Carolina, who starts the year number 12, and UCF ranked number 24. However, there is some FCS schools that are in this conference as well, such as William and Mary. They actually have a pretty solid defense. Villanova, home of the Wildcats, the Towson Tigers, Richmond Spiders, who did play spoiler for the Dayton Flyers NCAA basketball hopes this year, Northeastern Huskies, the Hofstra Pride, and one of the teams I had to go ahead and create for geographical reasons, the Charleston Cougars. Their football program will come back to life. As for the independent schools, only one FBS, or at least former FBS school, will exist as an independent, and that is the Temple Owls. However, 3 FCS schools will be chilling as independents. We got Morgan State, the UMass Minutemen, who are in the FBS in real life, but let's be honest, they're not an FBS caliber school anyways. And finally, the Rhode Island Rams, who actually did beat UMass in real life, despite this team being FCS and UMass being an FBS school. For the MAC Conference, we have some more former FBS schools that are going to be relegated downward. Eastern Michigan starts the year ranked number 4 in the country. Central Michigan ranked number 8. Akron at 11. Western Michigan at 15. Ohio at 20. And then the last 2 teams here that are ranked in the top 25, Kent State and Buffalo, ranked 23 and 25. Ball State is also in here, but they do not start ranked to begin the season. As for FCS teams joining the MAC Conference, got Indiana State, Illinois State, home of the Redbirds, Western Illinois, home of the Leathernecks, but looks like they have a Bulldog as a mascot. And then down at the bottom, we have the Salukis of Southern Illinois. You might recognize them from our battles in the baseball portion of the Youngstown State series. For Mountain West, there's San Diego State highlighting the group, ranked number 2 in the country. UNLV ranked number 7, but then some more FCS schools. We got Northern Iowa. They just had a first-round pick in this past year's NFL draft. The Southern Missouri State Bears, South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, who do have a custom coach. The South Dakota Coyotes, their rival in this series, as well as Omaha. Again, another school that we brought back for geographical reasons. We brought their program to life. Same with Denver. Same with the University of Missouri in Kansas City. Now for the Pac-10 out west, we got Eastern Washington. We got the 2 Montana schools, Montana State and the Montana Grizzlies. Weber State is in here as well, home of the Wildcats, followed by Sacramento State, made famous by some of Kaz Gaming's Sacramento State basketball series. Portland State, home of the Vikings. Northern Arizona of the Lumberjacks. Idaho State, North Dakota State, which I did end up creating because North Dakota State was actually not in this game originally, but you already know North Dakota State is a powerhouse, so I had to bring them boys back for sure, as well as their rival, the North Dakota State Fighting Hawks. Now moving on over to the SEC Conference. The SEC is now going to be taken over by teams like the Elon Phoenix, the Nicole State Colonials, McNeese State Cowboys, Wofford Terriers, the Citadel Bulldogs, Texas State Bobcats, who are an FBS school now, but they were FCS at the time, so I had to include them in this game. Southeastern Lions, Sam Houston State Bearcats. They spelled their Bearcats with a K instead of a C, so that's really interesting. The Northwestern State Demons, Georgia Southern Eagles, Furman Paladins, and of course, the team that pulled one of the greatest upsets in all of college football, the Appalachian State Mountaineers. They are in this series, joining this SEC group. So 2 more conferences left, and the Sun Belt is the only conference that is all FBS teams. This, of course, has North Texas, which was a Sun Belt squad at the time. Same with Mid-Tennessee State. Troy, who is still in the Sun Belt to this day, along with the Raging Cajuns, the UL Monroe Indians, Florida Atlantic Owls. Actually, they changed their name, so you gotta go by the Warhawks, but at the time, they were called the Indians. Florida Atlantic, they're now in Conference USA. Arkansas State, they now go by the Red Wolves, but they were also known as the Indians back in the day. And finally, rounding out the group, the Florida International Golden Panthers. And the last team that I wanted, or the last conference that I wanted to kind of show to you guys, is the WAC Conference. Now, the WAC Conference actually used to exist a few years back, but they actually were dismantled before the creation of NCAA 14, but they are back in this game. Teams that were in here that will still be in this game got San Jose State, Utah State, New Mexico State, and the Idaho Vandals that are in this group, along with FBS teams that are still going to be around. FCS teams that are going to be in this WAC conference, of course, will be Stephen F. Austin, Southern Utah, Oral Roberts, Northern Colorado, and a team that you guys might be familiar with as, you know, one of the most successful series I've had on the channel, the St. Thomas Tommies. It's a little shout out to them. So what's going to be really interesting to see going into this season is who is going to go about being the national champion here in year number 1, since everyone is starting off of, I would say, a similar footing. These FBS teams that did get brought down a notch, they are gonna have a little bit of advantage early on, but not much though. I mean, most of these schools are just 2-star schools, if that, so they're not gonna have much of a recruiting edge, with the exception of, you know, maybe like a North Texas, San Diego State, or Tulane. But even then, like, a lot of these teams are C+ teams at the most. Many of your FBS or FCS teams that are going to be in this series, they are going to be, you know, D- for the most part. But I mean, with the exception of North Dakota State, though, North Dakota State, they are going to be the best team in the game to start out. They are a B+. They're going to be head and shoulders over a lot of these schools in, you know, the early part of this series. But to be honest with you, I mean, it's really really going to be interesting to see, you know, how things shake out as the, you know, we go into year 3. Very you know, little gap between the bottom of this dynasty and the top, with the exception of North Dakota State, of course. It's going to be interesting to see what the new pecking order is going to look like, especially, you know, once we get through those first few years. But that doesn't mean, even though it features the worst of the FBS as well as the FCS, that doesn't mean that there isn't any stars in this series, man. I mean, we got some players. Of course, the 3 best players, you know, in this series to start out are all punters. Alex Magnum of Rice, Andy Simmons, and John Paul Handy are here in the top 3. 2 of them which are actually impact players. You know, a team is down bad when the punter is an impact player, man. You don't really see that. Anthony Sanders, though, the senior from UMass, he's the best position player that's not a kicker or a punter that's going to be in this game to start off. Anthony Sanders, a senior from UMass, he is an absolute problem for opposing secondaries. We'll see who else is in here. Lawrence Anderson is also in the 90s as well. He's a senior from William and Mary. As we look around and see who else is on this list, we've seen some North Dakota State guys. But yeah, man, this list will be initially dominated by the lesser FBS schools, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these FCS teams played a spoiler. Now, to give you guys some ground rules in terms of how I want to go ahead and go about with pacing over the course of this series. So what I do currently have planned is typically per week I want to show 8 games in, let's say, week number 2, right? And those 8 games will typically be national broadcast games that NCAA Football 06 does end up choosing. However, if it's not a game of the week, a top 25 matchup, and what I call top 25 matchups between 2 top 25 teams, or it does not feature 2 FCS teams, then what I will go ahead and do is I'll look at regionally broadcast games and choose from that, as well as get input directly from my channel members. So if you're interested in being a channel member and want to have direct input on what games do end up getting selected on a week-to-week basis, you can go ahead and check that out. I do have a join button right next to that subscribe button if that's something that does potentially interest you over the course of this series. Also, I only want to have 1 episode per week, so when there's games where there is 8 games that are going to be on the national broadcast, then I will show all 8 games in that 1 episode. So I do want to go ahead and have 2 episodes per week for this series, so that will help move things along a little bit more quickly, I would say. So that will help with the pacing. And then finally, towards the end of the season, I do want to get you guys in through custom prospects. Not going to do anything here for the start of season number 1, but towards the end of season 1, I will ask for custom prospects, and that will be based in how highly rated your guy is. It's based off of your membership status or whether you're a part of my Discord. I'm not going to read everything on screen, but generally, the higher of a membership status or a Discord that you are, the more likely you are to have a higher caliber player. Even though in these first 2 or 3 seasons of this series, you're basically going to be guaranteed to start. So that's kind of how I want to rock and roll over the course of this series. You can always give me suggestions down in the comment, but at least for the start of season 1, that's how I'm going to operate. But now that I laid out the ground rules for which games I'm going to pick, as well as the pacing that I want to do for this series, next episode, man, we're going to have our very first gameplay episode. And we only got 1 game here in week number 1, and that is, of course, the game of the week by default. The number 16 ranked Temple Owls will take on the Idaho State, I believe it's either the Bearcats or the Tigers. I actually don't remember Idaho State's name off the top of my head, but should be a good one. I hope you guys are really excited for this series and you are down for it, man. If you are, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you have to be brand new. Also, leave a comment for me, in terms of, any suggestions that you guys have, as well as the team that you're most excited to watch for over the course of this season here in year number 1, because that will really help me with the YouTube algorithm. It only takes a minute and it helps a brother out, man. So with that, next time out, I will see you guys with the game of the week, and I hope you guys are ready. Until then, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.